Everyone, please be advised. Thanks everybody for joining the Cloud Office Hours for the month of August 2018. The topic is going to be Microsoft 365. It's definitely a topic that has generated a lot of interest and a changing landscape in our customers, so I thought we'd help break that down a little bit for you. We're going to talk about M365, and then specifically, and we're going to talk about it all along the way when we get into the reasons why to make choices there and solutions, etc. And then as many of you know, we have Jeff Fowler, who has the security corner. He's going to dive a little deeper. We coordinated this month, and he's going to dive a little deeper into some of the key security features of the E5 offering, so that you guys can understand, which one is the one that makes sense for you as you go to EA renewals or planning or new acquisitions or any of those things. And of course, we always have questions at the end available to you. So your You Already Own It team. My name is Bob Ballard. I will be both the host and the subject matter expert this month, but we also have Jerry Martin, Aaron Ward, and George Scott from my team, as well as Mary Tucker, who keeps us in line, and we're all backed by the vision and support of our Vice President, Steve Winter. Again, these monthly community talks are tied to the newsletter that comes out with details about various subjects, always matching what's going on with the You Already Own It community call. Keep looking in there for lots of reasons. There's great content and sometimes slightly different amounts of detail or links to things on the various topic areas that we talk about, but there's also what we're calling our cloud service packs that are in there, which are the top 3 to 5 sort of interesting articles or blog posts or news release about the varying technologies that we think are most important and critical to our customers. We sort of help triage those for you. So take a peek there. Don't forget, of course, at any time you guys can reach out on the You Already Own It alias as a You Already Own It customer, and everyone invited here is. You can email us at youalreadyownit@go-planet.com and get access to our You Already Own It team, which is myself, Jerry, Aaron, and George, as well as a few others, to ask sort of those burning strategy questions around the various technologies that you might have. We're happy to, if we don't, between the 4 of us, already know the answer, to get the answer and get right back to you. So without any further ado, I'm going to get into the topic at hand. I think there's quite a bit of interest in this topic. Microsoft M365 has been out for a while, but I still think there's a lot of confusion as to what it is, what makes it up. And as we're seeing in many of our customers, we're getting engaged with them when renewals are coming up to say, what should I be buying? What should I be planning and budgeting for? And what, Microsoft wants me to buy X or Y. Does that make sense? All those kinds of things. And we're here to sort of help guide you through that. So I'm going to start off with something I normally don't do on these calls. I actually have access to the brand new sort of messaging deck from Microsoft on M365. And I thought it was important to go through it for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think anybody on this call has ever seen it. It is less than 3 days old. Secondly, I think it's important before we get into, and I am absolutely, by the way, this is not just me doing the Microsoft pitch to you. After a couple of slides here for sort of the visioning pitch, I'm going to break it down and we're going to talk about what should drive what you do. But I think it's important to understand sort of how Microsoft sees this platform and what it means so that you can understand sort of how it relates to you. So apologies, let me go back for just a second. They're really talking about 4 pillars. Unlocking creativity, and that's mainly focused on some of the Office 365 components along with Built for Teamwork. Integrated for simplicity is really talking about how all the pieces and parts come together so that as opposed to having 5 or 6 or 8 different products to give you this type of functionality, how integrated the experience is. And then intelligent security, which is a main reason and driver for a lot of the sort of higher value packages that customers are selecting today. So unlocking creativity, the entire platform. So by the way, again, there's a couple things, important things to note. This is the overall message pitch from Microsoft. What you won't see in these next, I think, handful of slides, 4 or 5, something like that, is you don't see any references to products. Find that interesting. Because I think they're really starting to talk about, M365 as sort of the standard platform, and we're seeing that to play out now. So all of these things together bring you these capabilities from the various products that make it up, right? So, the ability to create compelling content from intelligent apps. We're talking about the Office suites there, working with ink and voice and touch, that's combination of Windows and Office, sort of driving those things. Visual insights from data sets, so that you can actually take the information that you're gathering and share and analyze them, talking about Power BI, find what you need with personalized search, the ever increasing and more powerful combination of, the Office graph and how it interacts and allows you to intelligently bubble up information, not only about yourself and your interactions, but the data and finding things and having it be a connected experience across devices. By the way, I talk to customers a lot about, that are kicking off Office 365 journeys or sort of reimagining them or adding workloads. And the one thing that comes up over and over again is at the end of the day to the user, the number one feature of Office 365 is that I can get to my content and work on it from anywhere and any device. It's funny, after all of these features from an end user perspective, that still tends to be the one that bubbles up. And then built for teamwork, right? Collaborate in a chat-based workspace. We just did a session on Teams a couple of months ago. That's really talking about that. Syncing up with group email and calendars. This is, the layer of groups as part of a sort of connecting piece of functionality for Microsoft that not only is your distribution list, but it's a shared mailbox, shared calendars, as well as the group mailbox is also part of the distribution list. Creating content in intranets and essential location, where we're talking about SharePoint here, connect openly across the organization, and co-authoring using Microsoft Office apps, right? A lot of these features and functions you're aware of, etc. But again, Microsoft talking about this platform now much more as a platform than individual products, which is a new sort of paradigm for Microsoft. Integrated for simplicity, right? So the messaging here being that you can buy a lot of these pieces of functionality from a lot of different vendors. But when you buy them as part of the M365 package, right, they actually work together out of the box, similar reports for compliance that sort of can universally touch varying different parts of the platform, a unified e-discovery experience, things like that. So, along with M365, I get a modern desktop, right? I get a current OS, I get the most current version of Office. I get flexible device management through Intune. Right? I get an integrated administration experience across all these pieces and parts, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes as to what these pieces and parts are, and built-in compliance that works across all of them pretty much in the same way. And from an IT perspective, that's one of the big gets from sort of acquiring a suite like this, right? So there are third-party DLP products, there are third-party device management products, there are third-party, all of these kinds of features. But to have sort of an aggregated single pane of glass for management is a big get for IT. And then finally, intelligent security, right? I've got my identity and access management. That's the Azure Active Directory premium elements of this. Information protection. It's a whole bunch of products we're going to drill into in the security section, along with threat protection and security management. We're going to dig into those quite a bit, but there's almost too many products, quote unquote, to list in those couple of sections. But really what it's doing is aggregating a series of what I'd say are at least 10 products into those 3 buckets. So what is Office 365? Or what is M365? And I stumbled there. By the way, that's something that a lot of people do. Um, Microsoft 365, excuse me, is a series of a couple of components that, excuse me, that enable you to basically duplicate not only what we used to get with sort of the core cow and how we used to think about that paradigm, but then layer on all these additional capabilities around device management, identity management, security, and all of those things as well. So if we look at what makes up M365, we have the Windows OS on the base, we have your Office 365 SKU, right? And that's F1, E3, or E5 are the options under M365. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. And then enterprise mobility and security versions E3 or E5, depending on which Office version you get. Those all together make up Microsoft 365. Apologies. So this is an awesome eye chart. There's a lot of information here. That's why I put it. By the way, the pricing, that's standard out of the box, can, buy, pay as you go pricing. But I left it in there because it shows, even though your mileage may vary and the cost for most of the customers here with enterprise agreement, government pricing, and all the things that we have on this call, your price will be different, but sort of the relative factors between the prices are the same, right? Lowest cost one being F1, roughly 3 times that is the cost for E3, and then just less than twice as much as that is E5, right? So, those sort of paradigms will be similar in the, insert your pricing. So as you can see, here, right, there's, significant differences between starting off the F1 package and going all the way up to the E5. I'm going to drill into, I have a slide that makes this a little more clear. But, many people ask me for this chart. It is, as far as I can tell, I've never found it on the internet. So I will make sure as a follow-up that this chart goes out, because this is one of the biggest asks I get from my customers. So which plan for me, right? So there's 3 main plans in M365. The first plan being F1, that's your frontline task workers. So Microsoft has had a number of these kinds of runs at this scenario, right? We had the kiosk worker, we had Exchange kiosk, we had a bunch of different sort of plays at this. This might be the first one that gets it right. And what I mean by that is, you still have access to a lot of the security controls and compliance needs that are offered in the greater M365. But I don't have, for the first time, I have a basic web-based collaboration experience, small mailbox, access to many of the tools, but not quite all of them. But much of what, workers that are driving around in trucks, climbing up poles, maybe, doing, task-oriented jobs, can have access, we can get some of the security and reporting, not quite all of it, but most of it that you'd want. And for once, they may have gotten this SKU right to fill that gap. And then we move to M365 E3. So the new standard today, which a vast majority of customers are buying right now, when we look forward, is, it used to be that they were buying Office 365 E3. Over the last couple of years, the new standard really has been M365 E3. And we're going to get into my next slide, which talks about what all the pieces are of it. But, when we look at it, this is becoming the new de facto standard. I will add that most customers are also adding at least the Office 365 threat protection, advanced threat protection to that as well. And then what we're seeing for mature cloud organizations with an emphasis on security And that is really one of the big drivers. And we're going to talk about what you get. I think it's the next slide, what you get here. But the mature organizations with an emphasis on security, we're seeing more and more people step up to the E5 SKU that weren't looking at it before. So what are the big differences? If the chart that I talked about was the most requested thing that I get from our customers when I'm talking these talks with them, okay, help me understand, what do I get with E3 and what do I get with E5? The chart kind of helps you understand the E3 side of things. The E5 side, this is the breakdown of the things that you get with E5, Microsoft 365 E5, that you don't get with E3. Some obvious ones, these go down to just the Office underpinnings, right? I get all the voice capabilities, PBX replacement. There's a lot of power there. There's a lot of capabilities there. I would still say that it's not far and away not the driving force that drives customers here, unless they're really trying to revisit what their infrastructure looks like on the voice side. Power BI, very powerful data visualizations. We've done a session or two around Power BI in the past. The ability to deliver, data visualization analytics to the masses at a much lower cost than some of these, boutique data visualization tools are, like Cognos and others. Then we get into, I think, the big drivers. Far and away, right, the most important features that are driving people to look at the E5 SKU are these in the security and compliance side. So Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2 gives you a number of extra capabilities around integrating with other SaaS applications besides Office 365, a number of other ones as well. Advanced threat protection, and this is the part that also gets very confusing for customers. When most people hear advanced threat protection, they think just Office, the Office 365. That's, the URL rewriting and attachment safe detonation. I think Jeff is going to talk about this some in his session, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But it's broader than that. When you get E5, you get Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, and you get Azure Advanced Threat Protection, and there's some power capabilities I think Jeff's going to allude to. What I think is a growing space is advanced threat intelligence, which is sort of correlating these events and leveraging AI to deliver a broader view across what's happening across products in your organization, as well as getting information from other tenants as well. There's a small set of capabilities there that are very interesting today, but there's a lot of advancement in the roadmap in that section that I think is going to bring a lot of value to customers. Azure Information Protection Plan 2. So many of us have heard about rights management services, sort of which is a foundational pillar of Azure Information Protection, but it's just a piece. So part one of Azure Information Protection, which comes with the E3 plan, allows you to manually protect your content, right? When we want to also programmatically protect your content, in other words, categorize data based on classifications, location, some of the data keywords, things along those lines. So I can say it included these keywords, so therefore it is HIPAA, so I want to tag it as HIPAA, and therefore I have a protection scheme based on that. That is what Azure Information Protection Plan 2 delivers. Very powerful capabilities that a lot of customers are starting to get to the point where they're looking at now, right? They've sort of gotten through they've gotten over the hump of the basic work streams and starting to look at these advanced capabilities. The last one in this security category, cloud app security, is an area that I think is growing in importance to try to deliver some of these advanced security capabilities of the platform, right? So, the ability to take conditional access where I'm coming from, what device I'm using, or what applications I'm accessing, and limit or control them as any of those conditions are met. In other words, an example, I will allow you from a mobile device to access Office 365 mail, but I won't allow you to access something else. I will allow you on your home machine to access Office 365 from a browser, but I won't allow you to install Office and connect. And I can take that in Office 365 and do those things with OCAS, or Office 365 Cloud App Security. I can take that across other applications, any third-party SaaS applications like Salesforce and others, and apply similar conditional access rules to those. And then correlate security events that come from those to look at breach scenarios. So in other words, if you think about this, lots of products may give you some sort of alert on impossible login scenarios. I logged in from Office 365 at my desk, and somehow I have also logged in from Uzbekistan. Well, that's impossible. That should probably generate some alerts. What if I wanted to look at that across other SaaS products as well? It turns out that I'm logged in at my desktop, and I'm logged into Outlook and OneDrive, but I'm logged in also at the same time in Uzbekistan on Salesforce or Box or some other third-party SaaS application. With MCAS, or Microsoft Cloud App Security, I can extend that out beyond things. On the compliance side, customer lockbox, some additional advanced e-discovery. So, I'm going to say that many of our customers have, that are coming from limited e-discovery perspectives, have more than what they need in Office 365. But if you come from an on-premise, highly mature solution that you've been using for a long time, you may have procedures and processes in place that you're leveraging these third-party products for that finally can be met with advanced e-discovery. So, these are sort of the things that are driving people to take the leap to E5. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Fowler now, because he's going to drill down a little bit more on a number of these sort of security compliance needs, and talk a little bit more, because they tend to be the absolute key driver to say, that's why I want to make that step up and that additional investment. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning for our friends out west. So going into M365 E5 security, and why it really is the next generation security for next generation threats. Can everyone see the slides? Just making sure.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so why do you need E5 tier when it comes to M365? And really from a security perspective, as Bob mentioned earlier, it's really about the new tools and capabilities you get from identity access management, across threat protection, information protection, security management. There's really just a whole suite of things that really help your organization get actionable insights into what's occurring on your network, across your Azure tenant, across your mobile devices, across Azure. All those things really come together in a single pane of glass to really make your life a whole lot easier, and just the ability to manage your information and your users and your identities so much better than you really could before. It's just really phenomenal what they've done with it recently. And to get into a few different capabilities and tools. So for example, as Bob was mentioning earlier, everyone knows about advanced threat protection from an Office 365 protection, protecting your email from threats, from malware, from things that come across that you shouldn't be clicking on, infecting your systems with, et cetera, et cetera. But also from a Windows side of the house, for on-prem type systems, they've actually developed it so that you can have a central portal where you can access your Windows Defender Events threat protection capabilities. So really, once again, gives your enterprise security operations teams a single pane of glass experience to help secure your networks. So this allows you to do things such as carrying out an end-to-end security breach investigation of events that occur on your internal network. So you can use the security operations dashboard to gain insight on the various alerts, what's happening on your machines, and what's happening across your users across your network. And similar to what you've probably seen in Office 365 with Secure Score, there's also a Secure Score dashboard now for Windows in general, for Windows 10 devices, so that you can really expand your visibility and the overall security posture of your organization. So you can actually see machines that require attention. And it actually will give you recommendations that can reduce the attack surface in your organization across your Windows devices. And then you can actually use the Threat Analytics dashboard to continually assess and control your risk exposure as well. As we talked about several months ago, attacks such as Spectre Meltdown, this actually will say, hey, this particular attack is happening on this particular device and this particular user at this moment right now. You should probably do something about that. Or I've helped you by taking some actions on your behalf. So there's different tiers and ways you can go about doing it. But this really does help you a lot across the overall health of your organization. Active alerts, high priority, low priority, or just pure informational type things, for example. Moving on, this is double clicking for some reason. Anyways, the Azure Advanced Threat Protection, this is how you can kind of bring all these things together, where building upon Office 365 ATP and Windows Defender ATP, there's now Azure ATP, to really help secure your systems and once again get a lot of actionable insights into what's happening across your Azure environment. So it's really similar to Windows Defender ATP and your Advanced Threat Analytics capabilities, in that it's really monitoring your logs and watching for threats in your Azure tenant and your on-prem systems, where it's aggregating all that data across your domain controllers and your logs and alerts to help you identify multiple types of advanced targeted cyber attacks and insider threats across enterprise hybrid environments. So, and it's great because it actually leverages their proprietary network parsing engine to actually capture and parse that network traffic across multiple protocols. It's not just one. Here this includes Kerberos, DNS, RPC, NTLM, and a lot of others, watching what's happening from authentication, authorization, and information gathering. And by gathering all this information from multiple data sources, such as logs and events in your network, it can begin to learn behavior of users and other entities in the organization and build a behavioral profile about them. So as Bob was mentioning earlier, once you get that kind of stuff in place, things that occur such as impossible travel or people logging in to a machine that isn't their typical workstation for the first time ever, odd events like that may give you some insights into what's happening that maybe shouldn't be happening on your network. So looking at your events, you can pull data from your SIM, from your Windows Event Collector, from your Radius account, from your VPNs. So there's really a lot of different things you can do here to really greatly enhance your ability to find out what's happening across your hybrid environment and protecting yourself from malicious attacks such as pass the ticket or pass the hash, or golden ticket even, which is pretty hard to do except for in these kind of environments. So it really does help you protect yourself against these type of attacks, reconnaissance by the bad guys, credential compromise, or even lateral movement. So in addition, when we start talking about some of the advanced threat intelligence capabilities that exist from Microsoft in E5, this is where you start to leverage the power of the Intelligent Security Graph's vast threat intelligence data in one place that directly benefits your organization. So it really gives you an unparalleled view into the evolving threat landscape with millions and billions of unique threat indicators that are collected worldwide and then consolidated in an easy-to-use dashboard to have us all in one place. So really leveraging machine learning, advanced analytics to give you actionable information from different machine learning models and AI derived from the billions of signals that Microsoft sees daily. I think they're up to about 450 billion emails a month now across their Office 365 tenants around the world. And all of that will directly benefit you in that it actually gives us kind of information to you to say, hey, this is something we're seeing crop up around the world. This is what we're seeing crop up in your local area. Here are the various messages that are scanned, the threats that we help stop. And really, it allows you to have just shared insights from a connective fabric in the platform, and really extending to all the customers and partners of Microsoft through the security API that can then be leveraged in additional ways as well. From a security roadmap perspective, there's all kinds of really neat things that they've got planned on the horizon for us to make our lives even better to help protect ourselves from all the evolving threats out there in the world. And then last time I talked about conditional access and how cloud app security really helps you quite a bit there. But it also comes with regards to shadow IT. What shadow IT? I don't have that in my network. Well, you probably do. Whenever people in different parts of your organization have their own budgets, they can do what they want to do. They see a problem they don't think IT is addressing for whatever reason, so they take it upon themselves to find a new solution to that problem. So they start saying, well, maybe Box might be an easier way to share my data with people outside the organization. Or maybe I can go use Adobe, or I can use something else to share information or get, use different tools and whatnot. So what this really does is it helps you really discover and assess the risks across your organization by helping identify the cloud apps on your network, gain visibility in shadow IT, and also get risk assessments and ongoing analytics into what's actually happening. So this also allows you to control your access in real time so that you can actually manage and limit cloud app access based on conditions and session context, including identifying users, devices, and locations. You can create data protection policies as well, talking about conditional access, how protecting your data, what information is important to you, leveraging the Azure AD P2 capabilities with all the information protection capabilities to really bring these things together to have those policies protect you in real time across the board. So it really does help you tremendously protect yourself against different threats and your information no matter where it is. And then with regards to compliance, with the Compliance Manager capabilities, this is really an at-a-glance summary of the shared responsibility model, reflecting both Microsoft's and your organization's data protection capabilities and compliance posture across a wide range of standards and regulations, such as ISO 27001 or NIST 853 or HIPAA or GDPR in the EU. So it shows you how Microsoft has addressed the various controls related to those different standards and what they've done in place to protect you from those things, and also showing you what actions and capabilities that you can do from your side, from the customer perspective, in your tenant to protect you as well. And the great thing is it actually shows you what things you have in place. You can keep track of action items. You can assign things to people to go make sure you go have a look at this. You can show the date that it was you're targeting for taking care of this compliance measure for this particular control. You can show when it was tested and the results of the test itself. Did you actually pass? Did you fail? Is it a failure with a high risk, or is it a failure with a low risk? Or is it something that you have some kind of other control in place to protect yourself from that risk? So really, it's a great way to have a well-rounded approach to compliance and standards across the organization. So that's what I wanted to cover today. So thank you, and back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Jeff. I think that's a pretty, this has been a whirlwind tour, but I think that that's a pretty good, quick sort of dive into some of the capabilities that are only available sort of in the E5 SKU that could be driving, a lot of power and capability into your organization. So really quickly, before we wrap up, this presentation has been brought to you by Azure Advantage from Planet Technologies. It's the ability to have, it's our managed services around virtual machines in Azure, as well as Office 365 services and platform as a service management opportunities as well. You get all these goodies, things like daily, weekly, monthly management items, email and phone support. A lot of our customers are looking at this as a way as they help transition to the cloud. I don't have quite all of the skill set to be looking at all these tools that you keep showing me on these calls. Maybe for some of my critical machines, we should, have you keep an eye on them while we're gaining up to speed. One great example of how people are using that today. And with that, I will open up to questions. If there are any questions out there, fire away. Quiet group today, no questions. Alrighty then. Thanks everyone for attending.